So I have my little Word document to look at. All right. So this is the TC Tips and Tricks class. And I want to share with you some of the things that I feel will help your deals go smoother, and some of the things that I feel cause extra work for everybody, the snags and stuff, and things that I want to share just so everything goes a little smoother all around. So the number one thing I have on my list of tips and tricks is getting a property profile. How many of you, just by like raise of hands, get a property profile from title when you get a listing or before you get a listing? Tracy, yay, good job. Okay, so the reason, oh, hi Christine, good job.
Hello.
This is huge. I'm gonna share my screen and see if I can pull one up.
What about just using Realist?
So you can, but what Realist doesn't do is give you all of the information. I'm gonna pull up this property profile right here, if I can. And a lot of the reason why mostly that I want people to get property profiles is because of the trusts. The Realist tax will tell you if it's in a trust, but a lot of times it doesn't give you the full trust information. Whereas the property profile, and it's completely free, and all of your title reps will do this for you, and they can get it to you within, like, I think the most I've ever had to wait was like 2 hours. And it just has all the information you need with all the names. So you never are stuck waiting on the prelim to get any of the information that might end up being a hookup. I've had deals before where the seller forgot to mention they had a second. And we didn't know until we got into escrow, and escrow had done the prelim. This is the kind of information that is recorded in the property profile. It also gives you sales comparables, and it'll tell you the full trust names. And if you can't see the full trust names, you can then follow up with your title rep. It has the grant deeds, copies of the grant deeds in the back of it. But title will be able to find out anything for you that will come up later on in the transaction. And if you have this property profile, if not before your listing, at least right after your listing, you're not going to be surprised about anything because you have all this information already. And as you can see, the Realist tax portion is usually, what, 2 pages long? This is so much more information. I highly, highly recommend this. Because I have it all the time where sellers don't even realize that they have their property in a trust. And we've done all of the documents, and then all of a sudden we're in escrow, and then they're like, oh, actually it's in a trust. And guess what? We need an extra signature. And you don't want that to come up because it's going to take up everybody's time, and it can give an impression that you aren't prepared. And we never want to look like we're not prepared. So the property profile offers a huge amount of information so you have that knowledge before going into escrow. Nick, do you have anything else to add? I don't know if he's even listening to this meeting, or he's just proctoring it for me. Oh, good job, Elia, you get it too. Tracy, what do you think about using property profiles? How has it helped you?
Oh, it just helps me get a bigger picture of the whole thing, because a lot of times if owners have had the property for a long time, they just don't remember things. And it's okay that they don't remember things, but sometimes I've had where my title rep looks up something and says, you know what, there's a little lien on the property here. Or did you know that, you know, there was one that was just horrific. She did not disclose that she had a husband. And when we did the property profile, it showed that darn the luck she did. So crazy. So, you know, those are just a couple of examples, but it just gives me a general idea. And then it also gives me an opportunity to call my title rep if something is on there that I don't quite understand. And there are things that I don't quite understand. So my title rep can explain it to me, and then I can come to the seller, you know, with more information and in an information gathering perspective, not like, how come you didn't tell me this? Just like, you know, I've noted on the property profile that blah, blah, blah. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? Or what have you done towards this? Or what do we need to do to make sure that this sale goes through smoothly? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I just had one deal where the property had been held, I swear, I think it was like 90 years by the same family. And we had to go through all these different grant deeds, because when somebody else inherited it, they put it in a different trust, and then they put it in a different trust. And then, so it was really confusing. And if we hadn't had the property profile, it would not have been as easy as it was.
No, just
okay.
to get the proper spelling of the names is also important.
Oh my gosh, that's huge. Some people get very upset if they don't have the correct spelling. Yeah, definitely. So I'll get off my little soapbox about property profiles, but I really do highly recommend these for all your files. And for trusts, you know that there are trusts where somebody's just holding title in their trust, and then there's trusts where somebody has actually passed away and the successor trustee is selling the property. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because the trust advisory form that's in zip forms tells you and the buyer and the buyer's agent and the seller that in a case where somebody has passed away and it's being sold by a successor trustee, the seller is exempt from many of the normal disclosures. They're exempt from the TDS. And if you're exempt from the TDS, you're exempt from the seller property questionnaire. But what you're not exempt from is the exempt seller disclosure, the ESD. All of us who have been in the business for a long time, it used to be the supplemental statutory disclosures. Now it's the exempt seller disclosure. So you want to know when you get into that property, if it's a successor trustee or it's just a regular trustee that's selling the property. And you also want to make sure when you have the representative capacity, welcome to my slow zip forms today, signed, when the person that's signing as a representative of a trust is a trustee, meaning they're alive and they live in the property, or a successor trustee, you should notate that under their title. That's an easy way for escrow and the other agent to know that this is a successor trustee and they don't have the kind of...
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I missed half of your sentence.
Oh, okay. So right here on the representative capacity form, up here you would put the trust name. And then here, the person that is the representative prints their name. And then you put the title in this next section. And make sure to notate whether they're a successor trustee or just a regular trustee. And the reason for that is it's a quick, easy way for everyone in the transaction to know who is selling this property and whether you're going to get all of the disclosures or just some of the disclosures.
Okay, thank you.
So when you say
Mhm.
regular trustee, is that like I have my property in a trust and I'm going to sell it?
Yes,
Still
yes,
use representative capacity for that? It's your, even though it's your own?
yes, because when your house is in your trust, the trust is the actual owner and you are just a representative of that.
Yeah, okay.
And what this form says to everyone, and it's not just trusts, it's LLCs, it's corporations, it's partnerships. The property is being sold by whatever is on title. And was that you, Mary, that asked the question?
Yeah.
You're just the representative. So when you sign this form, it says to everybody that when Mary Whirlidge signs, it really means the Mary Whirlidge revocable trust dated blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
That's exactly what this form tells everyone. That every time Mary signs it, it's really the trust that's signing.
So
That
I have
Go
a
ahead.
guy that was a successor trustee and it got quit claimed to he and his sister, and then she quit claimed it to him, and now he owns it as his sole property as a single man. None of this
Ah.
paperwork would be involved, right?
Okay, so he quit claim it, and it's no longer in a trust. He just holds it as a single man.
Yeah.
He would definitely not need the representative capacity.
Yeah. Okay.
But a good thing to know beforehand is I've had situations exactly like this where they were successor trustees, but then they put it on in their own name, and they've done it within like 2 or 3 months, and nobody's lived in the property. When they put that property in their own name, they now have to fill out the TDS and the SPQ.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and he's lived
Yeah.
there for 5 years. We just have some issues with
Oh,
title.
that's perfect.
Title wants all the trust information, even though it goes back where the woman died like 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's, I think, another one of these things on my list is if you've gotten your property profile and you know that it's in a trust, escrow and title are going to need copies of those trusts. They're also going to need copies of death certificates. So when you're dealing with somebody that has inherited a property, it's good to let them know in the beginning that they're going to need those, they're going to need to find those things.
Okay.
Sometimes title does have a copy of the trust already, but unfortunately it sounds like on this one, they do not have a copy of it.
Nope.
Which,
Yeah, I didn't realize since it had been so many years since he had taken over the title that it would still go back to that.
yeah, that seems interesting. Have you talked to another title company?
I was talking to WFG.
Sometimes, not all the times. Most of the time, everything is the same with every single title company. But there are a few times where when I come up with a situation like that, I do also call another title rep just to ask them
Thank you.
if you're going to hit that same snag.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Any questions so far
Good.
or comments? Nope. Okay. So one of the things that I want to talk about next is not this. That's what we are all talking about. This. Okay. I know if you've all taken my RPA class, I talk about this a lot. Number 2 on page 1 of the purchase contract, B, confirmation of agency relationships. I received this contract last month, and the buyer's agent did not fill out any of the license numbers. They didn't even fill out their own broker's license number. So what this means for everybody in this transaction is that we now all have to do this confirmation of agency relationships form. Which is basically that little portion from page 1 on a whole new form. So this is coming up a lot. I don't know why. For a long time it was okay. It also comes up, it hits a snag because you have to do another form. It also hits a snag because lenders are coming back now if those numbers aren't filled out or those names aren't filled out. Escrows have come back to me for that information, and other brokers, our broker requires it to be filled out, but other brokers also require it to be filled out. So it's a pretty simple thing that can cause, I mean, it could cause up to 3 or 4 days if somebody just doesn't feel like signing things when we send them to them. So make sure to check that on the purchase contract. Fill out this stuff so you don't have to do that second form.
What's the code on that form?
This is the AC.
AC. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you're on the listing side and you get a purchase contract that's not completely filled out, just send this back with the counteroffer if you can. Or you can fill it in and have everybody initial the changes. But just know this is required per the purchase contract. And every broker is going to ask for it if it's not filled out correctly. The other one that snags people up a lot is if this loan amount on 3D, if it's not checked that it's an FHA or VA loan, and you don't send back the FHA VA amendatory clause. Okay, this form is important because what it says right here in number 1 is that if the property does not appraise for the purchase value, then the buyer is not tied into actually purchasing the home as long as the appraisal contingency is left in. The other thing that's been coming up lately with this form is if you send it with your offer, but you do counter offers and the price changes, you'll need to do a new form with the correct price change. So just remember that.
So just to make sure that I'm clear, so every time you do an offer, which is FHA or VA, you send that amendatory clause with it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then absolutely make sure you put in the purchase price as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. Another thing. Okay, check page 10. Perfect contract to bring up. As you can see, we got the contract back signed by everybody, and the buyer and the buyer's agent did not notice that the buyers did not initial this page. So on page 9, the buyer signs only the seller initials, and on page 10, the seller signs and only the buyer initials. I don't know why this is happening a lot lately, but I'm seeing this. Just make sure that you guys are conscious of what is being missed or not missed, because these are things that sometimes don't get caught until pretty far down the line, which is amazing because a lot of times there's 2 TCs, there's 2 agents, there's an escrow officer, there's a lender, there's an underwriter, there's the person that prepares these things, and nobody catches it until the last minute, and then everybody's scrambling trying to get missing initials. Also a big one is agents signing page 10. I don't know why this happens, but a lot of times agents forget to sign it. And That is another thing that'll come back and bite you. Some brokerages, not ours, will throw this back at you, and escrows and lenders if they're not, the addresses aren't filled in. So if you get one of these, just note in this situation, we've already taken care of the issues. But if you're doing it on DocuSign, just type in your information. It's not worth it to have this silly thing come back and bite you later on in the transaction. Sign it, put in your license information and your address, and then nobody's going to come back to you later for those things. The other one that with this new California Consumer Privacy Act, I don't know why, but the forms, digital ink, and even DocuSign when it's attached, they don't always tag this automatically. So make sure that you are dragging and dropping the signature tabs for here on this form. Used to be an issue a lot with the liquidated damages and arbitration, because when you do these out of digital ink or even the DocuSign, these are optional initials. And when your client gets it, it can just scroll right past it and they don't even know that they need to initial that. So what I do with my own clients is I have a conversation beforehand, and then I just change the optional initial to a mandatory initial. Okay. The other thing that trips people up, not as much as it used to, if there's a counteroffer, make sure you check here and put the date of the counteroffer. If there's representative capacities, in this case, the seller is, you need to make sure you check the box that says they're in a representative capacity. Okay. I think that is it. You all know that if you use templates and in the cover sheet, you have all your information filled out, that it will auto-populate on all the forms you have. And if you do MLS Connect, it should auto-populate all the information from the other agent. So that way you don't have to write it in on all your forms. It's already there for you. Okay. Next, I want to go to the TDS and SBQ. If you're using Glide for your seller disclosures, there's never this issue. But sometimes you can't use Glide and you have to fill them out by hand. Looking at this form, automatically the date is missing at the top of the form. So if you are dealing with another TC and a very strict brokerage, they're going to send this back to you because it's not dated. This area right here is new. Everyone seems to forget to put an X. In this case, they did put the X, but a lot of people are not doing that. And I'm getting TDSs sent back to me because that's not filled out. I don't know why, but seller or is not occupying the property is missed all the time. People will send you back this form if you send it without this box checked. It's also important because if the person does not live on the property, if they're a landlord, the buyer needs to know that because the landlord's only giving the information they know without occupying the property. So make sure that your sellers, when they fill out this form, say whether they are or are not occupying the property. So quick glance, I can tell that
Oh,
the
you sent me that.
seller didn't,
main pages that you would like me to?
Hi, Linda.
Okay, I'll do.
There's no range or oven at this house. I don't know if that's possible. They did do what most people forget is the number of remote openers.
Okay, and the reason why too, I'm saying that if we have a computer and stuff, I mean, it's like during COVID, you don't want, I mean, you don't know how people are about getting
Linda?
close to you. It
Can
would
you
be
mute
very,
yourself?
yeah. You know,
Hold on. Can
yeah.
you get Nick
Like
and ask him to mute
yesterday,
her?
Carla, she's very scientific and she's getting her shot, you know. And she asked me,
Linda, mute
if I was gonna
yourself.
get my coronavirus shot. And I told her no.
Linda.
You know, I said my body's so sensitive. I'm a little bit afraid of it, you know. And then she says, well, I'm
Okay,
going
I'm
down
gonna
to the
get Nick
convention
to.
center. And I'm giving you, and she made it a point to give you the place where you can
Oh,
go
here,
and
let's
sign up
see.
to get your shot. Please give this to Marty.
Linda.
So, you know, it's like some people, and you don't know where people are at, and you want to be sensitive to it. So, yeah.
Okay, well, we don't want to hear a private conversation, so I'm just kind of gonna
Oh,
talk. Okay, so the other thing that was possibly missed on this, or actually you can absolutely see is missed, the whole bottom portion of this form. Is this a completed TDS? Nope. They didn't say if there's exhaust fans. An exhaust fan exists in the kitchen above the oven. It also exists in a lot of the bathrooms. California considers that an exhaust fan. If it's something that when you switch on the light, there's a fan that comes on, that's an exhaust fan. 220-volt wiring. Is usually in a garage. They're those big plugs. If you've watched my Glide class, Glide will actually show you a picture of it. Fireplace in. If there's no fireplace, this should say NA, not applicable. Gas starter. Are there gas appliances? Is the fireplace gas? This should be checked. Roof. What type? What age approximately? If they have no idea, they need to write, I don't know. Okay. Any questions about this stuff? I know if you heard my disclosure class before, you know that I've already said these, but these are quick things that you can note that are going to save you a lot of time.
Niki, can I add a thought?
Yes.
Tell me what you think about this. If the seller says, I think we have 2 remotes, but I know for sure we have 1. I always counsel them put 1.
Yes.
Because if they're not certain, they know where the second one is, and we put 2, the buyer will expect 2 remotes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, unless they have those 2 in their hand, they should only put the 1 that they have. Correct. I absolutely agree with Tracy on that one. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about with in regards to disclosures is the SPQ. I need to get rid of my little pencil. There we go. Oh, now I have to erase everything. You know what's going to happen is I'm finally going to realize how to do all of this Zoom stuff, and we'll no longer be doing Zoom meetings. Okay, each on the SPQ and the TDS, actually on all of the disclosures, if they're not dated at the top of the page, technically all of those disclosures can be sent out because they're not filled out completely. I had this one come up yesterday on the TDS on page 3, where the agents click if they are providing an AVID or not. if you haven't checked that box that says that you're going to provide an AVID, the TDS and the AVID are not attached. So if you haven't done your AVID in, say, the correct seven timeline days, and you didn't check that box on page 3, but you provide your AVID later, it's not a state required form. It is a Coldwell Banker Coastal Alliance required form, but not a state required form, so that the buyer doesn't get the extra 5 days in which they could cancel. However, in this scenario, the agent had given all of the disclosures and just slipped their mind to do the AVID, but they had checked that box. By checking that box, you link those 2 disclosures together. So that way, that AVID that they're giving later on gives that buyer the 5 days in which they can review that AVID and cancel the transaction for something they find out. So guys, it's just so much easier to do your AVID in the beginning. It does not help anyone to wait and do this. Just get it over with.
Okay.
I know they're a pain in the okole, but they can be very important and they can hold a lot more weight than you think they do. So what I'm talking about is right here. Everybody checks the C attached agent visual inspection disclosure. You have now linked those forms together.
Niki,
All right.
we're getting the recording from this, right?
Yes,
Thank you.
I
So
believe so.
Nikki,
Yes.
so
Mhm.
Nikki, if you check that, are you required to submit to the buyer the TDS and the AVID at the exact same time?
Technically, yes, you are.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, because it
But
says,
if you don't check it and but if you don't check it, you still submit it. You just don't check it saying that it's attached?
right.
Okay.
Or you could check agent notes the following items. Agent will, they're going to
Submit.
ask you either way to submit it, but the main thing that I want you guys all to understand is that when you check these boxes, you link them, and that gives the buyer extra time. So if you're going to submit the disclosures, submit your agent AVID at the same time.
Gotcha.
I mean, I had a file close last week, and the the buyer's agent didn't give us the AVID until the day after it closed.
Yeah.
I've had ones where listing agents didn't give us the AVID until 3 days before closing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's crazy. I know, and I know how much you guys hate those forms. But you gotta do them. You just gotta do them. Okay. SPQ. Let me find it. Not in here. Seller property questionnaire. Number 5, page 1. These are the state required disclosures right here. These are the only questions that are on the exempt seller disclosure. No matter what, the state requires these to be filled out. And even if it's a successor trustee who never lived in the property, the question is, are you aware? Which means if they don't know the answer, they're not aware of it, and it's all no. If you have a successor trustee that's selling the property, just have them right here. I've never lived on the property in the explanation area. It's pretty simple. Make sure all of these boxes are checked. I've said it before. If it is a condo, this section 13, there's going to be one of these that's a yes. Okay, so if you're selling a condo, make sure you look at this disclosure and see if it says at least one yes in here. The first one is about dues increases or special assessments. That's absolutely could be a no. But any declaration of restrictions or architectural committee that has authority over improvements made on the property,
Mhm.
90% of the time, that's a yes answer. Do they have CC&Rs?
Yes.
Do they have to ask somebody if they can paint their door bright red? Yes, they do. Okay. Okay. Every single question here that is checked yes, all of them require answers. I know it's silly. If they check up here that the property is a condo, they shouldn't have to write that it's a condo, but they need to. As the longer I'm in real estate, the stricter brokers are getting about having the correct information. And the reason the brokers are getting stricter is because people are getting sued over these things.
Yeah.
I always jokingly say that if I bought a property and the person had snakes on the property and they didn't tell me on the SPQ and I closed escrow and then found out, I'd make that seller buy that property back from me. And I know it sounds silly, but I cannot, I would be forever sure that there was a snake in my wall. And I would sue the seller. I just would, because I couldn't live there ever. So make sure, yes, there's pets on the property. Yes, it's a snake. Yes, it's a dog. Yes, it's a parakeet. You know, just make sure they explain it.
And Niki, sometimes this might be a little bit of a gentle subject, but if the people, well, not even if they're older, but you just want to make sure that they answer correctly. Did anyone die in the property? Because sometimes they just don't even think about it. It's not like they're withholding it maliciously. They just, well, sure, my mom was here or my uncle was here. We took care of him and he did pass away. And it's just really critical because there are cultures and I mean, it's just something we have to disclose. Some people will not buy a property because of that and other people don't care, couldn't care less, but it's something that we have to disclose.
That's the first question on the statutory disclosures. And it says within the last 3 years, if somebody died on the property and your seller is aware of it, they need to disclose it. They just need to disclose it. They just need to say it happened 15 years ago. My mother passed away of natural causes or whatever, but disclose it, because if the seller doesn't disclose it, the neighbors will. Because we all love those neighbors. Okay. Any questions about that? And the reason, I know I sound silly and I know I harp on these, but man, those TCs out there, they're getting good. And they're going to keep sending you back these forms until they're completed fully. And I've had it where I've had to send things back 3 or 4 times because each time they only answer one of the things I want. And we've now gone that much further into the buyer's investigation period. Okay. Number 4, which we went over already on my little list, is AVIDs are sent with disclosures and are complete. You all know the verbiage for your, that should be on your AVIDs about the things I have listed above are what I have observed. I do not know what they mean, and I urge the buyer to further investigate. Okay, that should always be on page 3 of your AVID. Right here, and other observed or known conditions not specified above. the other thing I want to say about AVIDs is if you're at the property and you hear planes, if it's in the flight path, put that in on your AVID. If I had one property where closed escrow, and the seller had pets, and the pets were going to the bathroom in the house. After the property closed escrow, they ended up having to pull up all the flooring down to the subflooring to get rid of the smell. What saved both the agents in that case is both of them noticed that there was a strong smell on the property. So if there is a smell and you notice it, put it on your AVID. Okay, it's not just what you can see, it's what you can see, what you can hear, what you can smell. Okay.
Nikki, Tracy again, sorry. I just
That's okay.
attended a meeting, the Long Beach Broker Tour, and I don't know if anybody else was there, but Bob Brandt did a presentation. We love him. And he talks about how to minimize your opportunity for being in litigation. And he talked about the AVID, and he said, you know, no descriptive terms, like no, in other words, we don't know if it's urine. We don't know if it's a dog. Even though they have dogs and cats, we don't know because we didn't see the animal do the stuff. So you just say strong odors. And because if you end up in court, if you said strong cat urine owners and then people said, no, my cat never did, it's just, you just want to be just the facts. And, but state it, like Nikki said, it's not just visual. If it's something that you observe, all your senses, you just want to make a note, but not into too much detail because we don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is request for repairs and seller's response. When you're doing a request for repair, the buyer can ask for all of these items, A, B, C, and D. You can check on the attached list, and you could do a Word document, which lists all of the things that your buyer wants repaired. Or you can just type in number 1, number 2, 3. Every time I hit enter, Zip Forms is just giving me more and more lines used. When I send this out for signature, what Zip Forms is going to do is it is going to, hold on 1 second. It says see text overflow addendum. And then it puts all of those repairs on the text overflow addendum. Do not use a normal addendum to list the repairs that you want. On the bottom of the text overflow addendum, it says that the foregoing terms and conditions are incorporated in and made a part of this document that it refers to in number 1, the request for repair. The undersigned acknowledge receipt of a copy of this. When the buyer and seller sign this, they're signing that they received it. They are not signing that they've agreed to any of those terms. Okay? For all of those agents out there that are still using addendums to list all of the things that the buyer wants repaired, at the bottom of the addendum, it says the foregoing terms and conditions are agreed to, and the undersigned acknowledge receipt of a copy of this document. So if you got a request for repair, Marcella, and they wrote 30 things on an addendum, do you want your seller signing this addendum that's saying that they agreed to everything on that list?
No.
No. But if they put 30 items on the text overflow that just says that the seller acknowledges receipt, is it okay for them to sign that?
Yes.
Right.
Oh,
Thank
so
you.
it's the addendum that they're going to sign, not the form. Okay, got it.
It's only the text overflow. Okay.
Yes.
Right. It's also available on the seller response to request for repair. Because that form has even fewer lines. If I check other and I type, push enter, it just keeps giving me more and more lines. So you can do the same thing with the seller's response.
And this
Okay.
is for one of, which one is this? The seller's response. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I think, yeah, it does it for the top portion too. No matter how much you write there, as long as you push enter at the end of the line, it's going to give you more lines to write on. Okay. One of the things that has been coming up lately is a lot of people like to tell the seller that these are all the things that we want repaired and we're requesting the credit. But if you've checked this box and checked this box, it means you're asking for the repairs and you're asking for the credit at the same time.
Okay, so you don't check those boxes. I mean, the last time I, that I did that I represented buyers, I think, let me see. Yeah, because they had a long list of wants, and this was a flip. So we didn't get an answer till almost at the end,
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, just wanted to note something. I just remember about animals. I know some agents in Los Angeles that they were showing a house, and I actually went to see the house, and the house was beautiful. It was a small cottage, a European cottage in the border of South Pasadena in Alhambra. And and the owner, a woman, had cats. So what she did in order to show the house was she put the cats in the attic. So
oh,
yeah,
geez.
Just so you guys know. So so everything looked beautiful. I mean, when they had to show, every time they had to show the house, they were wondering where the cats were because they didn't see them. They thought that she had taken them with her. And then when they sold the house, the funny part is they had inspections, and I don't know why. Maybe the inspection was in the beginning. I don't know, but then later on, once they closed on escrow, they realized that the attic smelled a lot, and that's going to your comment on that the agent sometimes, it's hard because what do you do in that sense? They never noticed. They never noticed that the attic, they didn't go up to the attic. They never noticed that the attic had cat poop and pee all over later on. And
So
it's a lawsuit.
in that case, the onus would fall on the seller for not disclosing that, because the AVID just requires areas that the agents can get easily accessible to.
Mhm.
So it's not easily accessible to get in an attic. So it would not be an agent's fault that they didn't note that on an AVID. But in the case where I was talking about, if both agents hadn't said that there was a noticeable odor, they could have been held liable for not noting that. But that was
Yeah.
because it was like the living room. It was not something that, under the house or in a crawl space or in the attic.
Yeah. No, and they didn't, it ended up being fine for them, but they did have to go to court and they had to testify.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to this. If the buyer wants a credit, but they want to tell why they want that credit, this is the best verbiage I've found. You don't check the box A, you only check the box about the credit, and you write buyer requests a credit 1C or 1D, sorry, not C. No, I am right, 1C. I just wrote this in the wrong place. $3,000 for the following items. So you can list why you want, what's wrong, and why you're asking for the credit, but there's no confusion as to whether you want them repaired and the credit. Does
And
that make sense?
What if your first choice, what if the buyer's first choice is that the seller repairs the items? And if they cannot repair, then they would ask for a credit. So in the beginning, you just put repairs, no? And if they
in that scenario, I would check A and I'd list all the items, and then at the bottom of that list say, or seller can credit buyer, blah, blah, blah.
where would you put the or?
So instead of having it up here at the top,
Then you put it at the.
okay, so I don't want to spend too much time because apparently we're doing request for repairs next week. So I would just list all the things that they want repaired and then write, or you're asking buyer requested seller prior to final verification, repair, take the following specified action, repair, put in a new water heater, blah, 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 or credit buyer 3,000.
Niki?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me how your thoughts are. I've always heard from lenders, if we say credit for $3,000 for these items and it's on the request for repair, the lender will be alerted to these items that need repair. So they have recommended that saying or $3,000 towards closing costs. I mean, we don't connect the items that need repair with the credit. What are your thoughts?
Okay. Yeah. So just to make it that much more confusing for everybody, you list everything on the text overflow addendum. Once all parties have agreed, whether it's a credit or a lowering of the purchase price, you then go to an addendum and say seller to credit buyer $3,000 for reoccurring or non-reoccurring closing costs. And that is what you give to escrow and the lender. Only the addendum that has the closing cost credit on it or the purchase price to be. So you absolutely never, ever, and even after 15 and a half years, I have still had in the last year, an agent send a request for repair to the lender and escrow. And I'm like, what are you doing? Never do that. Clarify the terms, everybody's agreed on it, then you put it in an addendum. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about is communication. Every person in a transaction is only as good as the information we are given. If somebody asks you to CC their TC, you see their TC. A lot of times agents don't keep track of, don't pay attention, not our agents, of course, but other agents don't pay attention to the paperwork at all. And if the TC isn't getting those documents, you can hit a big snafu. Okay. I know everybody hates it when you've got those people that have, you know, the listing agent, and then they have somebody that the administrator, and then they have the TC, and and you're like, why am I CCing 5,000 people? Because you want everybody involved in the transaction to have the exact same amount of information as everybody else. If you're doing a request for repair and everybody has agreed on lowering the purchase price or credits, tell that escrow officer right away. Before you even get that signed addendum, just call up the escrow officer or send an email and say, just to let you know, everyone's agreed on a $4,000 for credit. We'll send the addendum as soon as it's completed. Okay, let the lender know that. If something draws out to the end and credits are decided after the closing disclosure has gone out, they have to do a new closing disclosure. And you set back your transaction.
So the first one to call is escrow, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other thing is know your area. I know sometimes we sell out of our normal area, and that is okay. But if you're going to do that, please check with the TC, check online to see if there are any city required inspections. Check to see beforehand if they're paying a city transfer tax. These are just little things, but they are things that are part of your job and you need to know them. So if you're going to be selling something in Compton, search on Google what inspections are required in Compton, because there is a property inspection that is required by the city in Compton. And not only that, there's also the 9A report for Los Angeles and the water cert. It
So, Niki,
doesn't really, yeah, go ahead.
sorry. I'm selling a property in Tustin, and I called the city of Tustin, and one of their inspectors called back, and he didn't get what I was trying to ask him, if they had any city required inspections when transferring a property for sale. He went round and round. I never got a straight answer from him, so I assume they don't.
Let's just see. So pre-sale inspection. So I just Googled city required inspections. And like the fourth one down, I don't know if you guys just saw that, was city pre-sale inspection reports, and an escrow company put this up. And then it has a list of all these counties, all the cities that require pre-sale inspections. So let's go down. PQRS.
Yeah, I called title too, and they said no, or they didn't think so. No,
Just a
Tustin.
smoke detector certificate of compliance.
No,
No inspection required.
Orange County, Tustin.
Tustin, let's see. Nope.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Nope, just Newport Beach has a building report. Yeah, so gosh, Google is my friend all the time. All the time.
I Googled and I didn't find it, but I just wanted to like double check. And then I got that roundy round with that conversation, and it was like, oh my. Thank you.
You're welcome. Another way, another thing or way the title is your friend is, let's see. Guys, I love Dropbox, just in case you didn't know that. These are all cities in Los Angeles that do require city transfer tax. Over here, so Los Angeles is really a big city. These are the places in Los Angeles that require a city transfer tax, because not all of them do. Culver City, Redondo Beach, Santa Monica. So this came from Lawyer's Title. I also have another form from Tycor, somewhere in here. Transfer tax rates. There we go. Tells me what the county tax is, tells me what the city tax is. All Orange County cities pay $2.20 per $1,000 for the city and $1.10 for each $1,000 for the county.
Do you know?
Niki, I have a question. Sorry, what would happen? What would happen if you didn't know and, like, let's say you couldn't find information or something, and then you're selling the home or something? Like, how would it come about that, oh, you didn't have that inspection? I'm just curious.
Okay, so in Compton and a lot of the LA cities, escrow will not close without those inspections.
Okay.
And it can take 2 weeks or longer to get those inspectors out to your house.
Exactly.
So
Okay.
I have literally had it where in an LA escrow, the inspection wasn't done, and it ended up taking us like 3 weeks to get it all taken care of because they called out something in the inspection. Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious. I'm curious because I have something in Buena Park, and I didn't even think of that. So I'll be looking on Google as soon as we get off here.
Let's see.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. The other thing about transfer tax is I've had it where somebody didn't check the city tax fee and you're already in escrow. And the seller said, I'm not going to pay it. And the buyer had to end up paying the city transfer tax fee, which is normally a seller fee. So you want to know that information. Time frames. If we sign a contract on Saturday, what is that, the 14th? Day one is the 15th. The day the contract is signed is like the 0 hour. And then it counts to the next day is day one. I've had people recently who thought that the timeline starts when escrow is opened. Escrow opening has nothing to do with the timeline of the transaction starting. Okay. And confirmation of initials is not required for a timeline to start counting. Okay, it's not even required at all.
I'm sorry,
both
Niki.
parties have, yeah.
Can you say that again? Because I missed, I was trying to take some notes and then I missed it all. When does it start?
So if our contract is signed on the 14th, on Sunday, 3/14, day one is 3/15. Even if escrow gets opened, it can be opened within 3 days. Escrow not open till the St. Patrick's Day. You are still at now you're at day 3. Because the first day was the 15th, 16th, 17th, okay?
So you mean when you talk about the signature of the seller agreeing on your sale, but not all the additional little signature that has to be added at the bottom of the page?
Yeah, that additional confirmation of acceptance is not necessarily the date timeline start.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. And actually, I believe that confirmation of acceptance is maybe going away, but I could be wrong about that. Referral.
Niki, can I ask one last question? I'm sorry. I just want to clarify something. Something that someone just said. I didn't know who it was. So the acceptance from the seller, that's what triggers, that's day 0. Let's use your example. Let's say it's Sunday the 14th. They accept, that's day 0. That's day 0. And then obviously Monday would be day 1. So it's not, I just want to clarify something else. It's not all those additional signatures that creates that fully executed, correct?
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to double check that because that's what a lot of people think. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I'm just going to show you something. I just had this seller counter offer come through, and the seller signed and dated, and then the buyer signed, but they didn't date.
Mm.
So then we all had to go through, when did this timeline start?
Oh, wow.
So when I harp on dating, it is really important. So what we had to do was we had to go off of when the listing agent got this counter offer from the selling agent is the day that we used to start the timeline.
But this is surprising because that's like a DocuSign. You know, normally they come automatically. They sign and they put the date next to it.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but this is the date everybody goes off. And it says here on this confirmation of an acceptance, a binding agreement is created when a copy of signed acceptance is personally received by the seller, whether or not it's confirmed right here. So the binding agreement is created when both buyer and seller sign 4 and 5. Got it?
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we're going to wrap this up real quick. Number 9, referrals. You guys, if you get referrals, tell your TCs immediately. Or tell Rachel, who's at the office, do your referral, do your ATR, send it to Rachel. Us finding these things out at the very end of a transaction. So what happens is we're all the way to close of escrow. And this happened on a deal just recently. And the night before we close, of course, at like 7 p.m., oh, I forgot to tell you I have a $4,000 credit or referral due. So the next day, I'm having to get a referral agreement. I'm having to get a W-9 from the person that we're giving the referral to. I'm having to contact Rachel, who's then having to redo what she's already done to then get it all to escrow before escrow starts generating the checks. So if we know at the beginning that there's a referral, then it's all taken care of. But to not know about a referral until the very end really can mess up the transaction. I've had it in cases where the referrals didn't even get sent in time. And then it's a whole other ball of game because then you have to possibly give back some of your money and blah, blah, blah. So just give those referrals as soon as possible. And last but not least, seller in possession or residential lease after sale. Seller in possession is 30 days or under. Anything longer than 30 days, you have to do a residential lease after sale. Negotiate the time as quickly as you can. You know, make sure that if you know ahead of time in your counter offers, you're saying seller will need to rent back for 25 days at buyer's PITI or at no cost to seller, whatever you want to say. You can wait till later to actually fill out the form because that's when you're going to be able to find out what the PITI is. So negotiate that everyone knows there's going to be a rent back or possession after sale, but do the actual money part of it later on in the transaction when you know how much and how long it's going to be for.
Niki?
Mm-hmm.
I heard in the past that I knew about the 30 days, but I had heard that if you wanted to do longer than 30 days, you had to be very careful because the lender would look at it as would no longer look at it as a owner-occupied property. Is that something that you've heard?
Yes, that is something I've heard. I haven't had it so much on like 35 days, but it has come up when it was like 60 days.
Mhm.
I just
And
did
in
one of
those-
those.
Hmm?
I just did one, and it's 60 days lease back, and basically we're just going to leave it outside the lender's purview, and just you know.
There you go. Yeah. If you're going to do that, then you're not going to want escrow to hold any money, or you're just going to do it outside.
Mhm. Thank
Because
Nikki, can
we
I
all
say
know-
one? Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah.
I was going to mention something else. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We all know that there's a huge difference between non-owner occupied and you're just waiting a month or two for the seller to get out. In the market we're dealing with, where there's so little inventory, sometimes the seller's not going to be able to get out really quickly. So in that case, you know, things happen. And you might have to do it outside of escrow. Go ahead, Christy.
I'm sorry. I was actually just going to say something that I just recently learned. When you're doing the PITI, asking for on the rent back, make sure if it's a condo that you're adding that H, because otherwise you're having your buyer pay the HOA. I was safe on this last transaction. I forgot to put the H. I was safe because the escrow instructions read that, but I learned very quickly, like, don't ever do that, because otherwise my buyer would have been paying for the seller for their HOA. So, because I think we forget when we're dealing with single family. Just something I realized, whatever. So thanks.
Great point. Good point. Okay, so those are my like big tips, and they're things that come up a lot. If you have any other questions, you can ask me now. If not, I hope you all have a great day.
Thank
And
you. That
I
was
truly
wonderful.
appreciate all the input. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank
Very
you.
helpful and informative.
Thank you
You're
very much.
welcome.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you, Nikki. You're the best. Contract
Oh,
queen.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a great day,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.
You too. Bye. Where'd it go? Where's Nick? Oh, I did wonderful. Who, what, when, where? Mhm. Oh, she may have, you know what happens is she does them and then the front desk sends them out. So she may have done it before she got. Yeah, I think she tries to do those in the morning. And who knows when the front desk sends them out. Oh, well. Too bad, so sad. Mm-hmm. Yes.